We begin tonight in downtown Los Angeles as the city braces for a sixth night of protests against immigration raids. Good evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. A nighttime curfew is set to go into effect in just 4 hours. And Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass says it will continue each night for as long as needed. Police arrested more than 200 people last night for failing to leave the area after the curfew took effect. The good news? There were no arrests for looting and vandalism. We'll see how that plays tonight. Since the Trump administration's immigration crackdown began in Los Angeles on Friday, the White House says agents have arrested hundreds of illegal immigrants, some of them with criminal records.
Since June 6th, there have been 330 illegal aliens that have been arrested as part of these riots in Los Angeles. 113 of those illegal aliens had prior criminal convictions. And overall, and this includes arrests of American citizens, there's been 157 people arrested for assault and obstruction-related charges, including the attempted murder of a police officer with a Molotov cocktail.
Well, this is the man accused of throwing that Molotov cocktail at officers. DHS says Emiliano Galvez is an illegal immigrant from Mexico. He was previously deported. Another man was also charged for allegedly holding a Molotov cocktail when officers approached him. Los Angeles' mayor has condemned the violence in the city. She also says the administration isn't just going after violent criminals, it's targeting families.
We started off by hearing the administration wanted to go after violent felons, gang members, drug dealers. But when you raid Home Depots and workplaces, when you tear parents and children apart, and when you run armored caravans through our streets, you're not trying to keep anyone safe. You're trying to cause fear and panic.
Meanwhile, the 700 Marines that President Trump activated are getting special training in how to deal with protesters and American civilians. The commander in charge of the National Guard in L.A. said today about 500 troops have now been trained to accompany ICE agents during immigration raids. And as California's leaders continue to criticize the military deployment, Pentagon Secretary Pete Hegseth suggested today during a hearing on Capitol Hill that the administration could send troops to other states as well.
Part of it is getting ahead of a problem. So that if in other places, if there are other riots in places where law enforcement officers are threatened, we would have the capability to surge National Guard there if necessary.
In addition to protests in L.A., there are immigration protests already starting tonight in Raleigh, North Carolina and St. Louis, Missouri. And at least one governor of one state is not waiting for the federal government to get involved. After protests in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott sent the state's National Guard across the state of Texas to deal with them. Let's go right now to NewsNation's Nancy Liu now live for us on the ground in downtown L.A. Nancy, what are you seeing? I know protesters have gathered there yet again for a sixth night.
Yeah, we're outside the Federal Detention Center, and this is where people detained by ICE agents, they are brought here. And in fact, behind me, I think we have a caravan of vehicles trying to pull in, and when that happens, we usually see LAPD leading the way, trying to close down the street so vehicles can pull into the loading area. I don't know if that is happening now, but you can see that we have about 100 protesters who are here. It's been very peaceful throughout the day. Far cry from yesterday at this hour when police had to shut down this roadway, and we had mass arrests of hundreds of people even before the curfew went into effect. But we are now less than 4 hours from yet another curfew here in LA, and we are seeing LAPD more of a presence. And several times, Elizabeth, we have heard them say, everybody get out of the street. But, you know, people keep spilling back into the street. We have yet to hear a dispersal order. And, of course, that could happen. And things usually unfold quickly when the people do get out of hand. But for now, it's been quite peaceful here. Elizabeth?
All right, good to hear, Nancy Liu. Thank you. Let's go now to NewsNation's Alex Capriello, live outside City Hall in Los Angeles. What's the situation there, Alex?
Yeah, look, not that far away from Nancy Lou, just a few blocks away at the Federal Building. I'm outside City Hall, obviously responsible for legislative affairs for the city of Los Angeles. You see some police that are standing at the ready protecting this building, but there's not much to protect because this is a largely peaceful crowd that have been out here for several hours now, primarily representing and celebrating their Hispanic culture, waving flags, staying on the sidewalk, I might add, because as soon as they enter the street, well, there's LAPD to sort of clean it up, push them back on the sidewalk, and allow this First Amendment protest to continue on as planned. As Nancy mentioned, a far cry from what we've seen over the past few days. Lots of vandalism, looting that happens particularly after nightfall. Mass arrests happening, NewsNation on the ground watching that happening. And then earlier today, listening to the sheriff, the police chief, and the district attorney, they were saying that, look, if you were not among those several hundred that were arrested, but you were out there doing bad things, committing crimes, we will find you, because there is a network of thousands of cameras that they are going to scour through, not to mention all that social media video that they can look at to try to find those perpetrators. Take a listen.
There's a tremendous amount of video out there through social media and otherwise. We will know who you are, who engaged in this conduct. We will track you down, we will arrest you, we will prosecute you, and we will punish you. So, for people who've already engaged in this illegal activity, we're coming for you. For people who are thinking that maybe this is a good idea to do, please take this as your warning.
Most recently, according to LAPD, there's 3 separate demonstrations that are happening. One, which is right by Nancy Lou. The second one that's happening right here. And then the third one, apparently there's some 150 or so people riding bicycles in a line all throughout downtown Los Angeles. I've yet to see them. We'll actually try to find out where exactly they're heading to or where they're planning on parking. But this is sort of what's happening in downtown Los Angeles as we await that curfew to kick in once again,
so
8 p.m.
Alex,
Pacific time.
Protests underway, largely peaceful. It appears, and all you've seen are the police and sheriff's deputies keeping things under control, correct? No National Guard, no Marines.
National Guard is only primarily situated right by that federal complex where Nancy is, protecting that detention center, protecting that federal courthouse. We have heard most recently that the U.S. Marines are stationed closer towards Paramount and Compton, California. That's south central Los Angeles. We are hearing that they are undergoing training, but we have not actually seen them boots on the ground, walking around or conducting any sort of business.
All right, Alex Capriello at one of 3 different protests underway in Los Angeles. Thank you. My guests tonight have extensive experience with immigration enforcement. Emilio Gonzalez is a former DHS advisor for Trump's transition team. He also served as director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services under George W. Bush. And Victor Avila is a retired supervisory special agent with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Great to have both of you here tonight. Victor, first, I just want to get your reaction to day 6 now of these protests in Los Angeles as ICE agents fan out and make these arrests. And we have heard over and over, I had the DHS spokesman on last night, these raids will continue.
That's absolutely right, Elizabeth. Great to be back with you. I think the raids in the operation of law enforcement, you're going to see that continue. The big difference here after this 6th day, you notice that I think they've gotten the picture here, and I'm talking about these protesters. I don't like to call it protesting because I've seen the difference between real protesting and destruction of cities. And I think they're slowing down. I think the response by this administration coming at it immediately is making a difference now that people are not going to be getting away with any kind of looting or any other kind of criminal activity, especially against law enforcement. Yeah,
it is important to note that the vast majority of protesters have been peaceful. There have been some bad actors that have been committing violence. Those people, as we just heard from DA Nathan Hochman, will be found and will be prosecuted. Emilio, as these protests are spreading now from Los Angeles across the country, there's a warning from Georgia's Attorney General that anyone destroying property could be charged with domestic terrorism. But then you go to Chicago, where the progressive mayor is urging people to get out and protest, saying this afternoon, this is a necessary fight. I'm counting on all of Chicago to resist. He did emphasize peacefully, but this is a very different message.
Well, this has to do with the fact that these are all cities that are headed by Democratic mayors. I guarantee you here in Florida, this stuff won't happen. We have a governor that's basically drawn the line on this kind of criminality. This has absolutely nothing to do, I'm convinced, with illegal immigration. This is an opportunity to destroy. This is the same thing we saw in Seattle.
What makes you say that? Wait, Emilio, what makes you say that? We've interviewed many, countless protesters who are there because of these ICE raids.
Yeah, you know, the ICE raids are there, okay? The ICE raids will continue. The ICE raids will continue in the future. But what you've got now, if you've got people that are professional, I want to say destroyers, haters, these are the same folks that went to Seattle as Antifa and burned the place down. Then they went to Minneapolis and burned the place down. And now they're looking for an opportunity here in LA. There may be a reason to protest this, but burning down stores, throwing rocks at police officers, launching Molotov cocktails at federal law enforcement, those are not legitimate protests. And I will tell you, Elizabeth, that the people that they're harming the most are the immigrant communities themselves.
Right, and we've heard that message from the mayor of LA and the governor of California as well, that violence is never the answer and please only protest peacefully. But it's interesting that these are now spreading across the country. I'm curious, Emilio, you served in the 2024 Trump transition team for the DHS. Was this ever discussed, sending the military in to quell civilian protests?
I think it would be vastly inappropriate for me to talk about internal discussions, but I will tell you that this is an administration that takes citizen protection, national security, public safety very serious. We're not going to go through what we went through years past. We're not going to have, you know, if we don't stop this now, Elizabeth, what's going to be the next time? Is there going to be 3 years from now another protest because of a tax on remittances, or is there going to be another protest over any other inane thing that will launch these folks into burning down businesses? Can you imagine what could possibly be gained by burning down a bodega owned by an immigrant to protest immigration policy?
Yeah, as you have pointed out, there is an element in there that is obviously a criminal element that is opportunistic and looking to start that fight.
But what will end this is I was just listening to some of the statistics of the numbers of people that have been arrested. You know, in the past they would arrest all these people and then they'd let them go. If these people are seriously going to be arrested and prosecuted for things like attempted murder, destruction of government, I guarantee you that is the ultimate deterrent. When those folks are sent to prison for several years, they'll be thinking twice, or at least the ones that follow them will be thinking twice about taking this on. There has to be a consequence for this action.
Well, I think that we know from the White House press secretary today that the 300 plus people who were arrested, a third of them had criminal records of some kind, but they weren't wanted for crimes. They're simply being deported, but they will all be deported according to DHS. Victor, I want to ask you, as a former ICE agent, part of what's driving these protests is the way these raids are actually happening. ICE agents are showing up. They are masked. They are armed. They show no warrant or identification. Are these measures necessary for them to do their jobs?
At this point, they're necessary, and I'm going to tell you why. I covered my face one time on a high-profile arrest, but it's because of the possible danger that I faced from the community of the person that I was putting in jail. And so I don't blame the ICE agents for trying to take cover and protect their identity, and or the type of enforcement that we're seeing. Open up the jails, open up the state prisons, open up the county jails, and you're going to see a lot of this go away. We need to get access to where the criminals are. That's where they want to go after them and get them in these secure situations instead of taking it to the streets. I think most people would agree, but the sanctuary city policies from these Democrat states won't allow that. And now you see we're here facing these type of issues because they're not going to stop. They're going to go where the illegal aliens are living, are working, and in fact, they're picking up a lot of people that don't have criminal histories because they are encountered with the ones that do have criminal histories, and there's no more option anymore. And I have to agree here that this is, I think, fundamentally, looking at the bigger picture, I'm not sure how many people are actually out there protesting for immigration purposes anymore. I think now it's a fundamental change. I think it's ideology. I think we have to look at the bigger picture politically and what is it that they want to do and what message are they trying to send with these with these type of protests. I'm not talking about the person that actually wants to fight for the family member. I'm talking about the people that are there as the instigators. What is the real reason that they're doing this? Because we're not going to accept the destruction of our businesses and our communities because of these agitators. I think we need to look at ideology. What's the reason behind it?
Yeah, obviously there have been agitators on both the left and the right. We've seen Antifa, as Emilio pointed out, infiltrate Black Lives Matter protests in years past. We've also seen the Proud Boys infiltrate conservative groups' protests, conducting the same sort of agitation and stirring things up. Victor, really quick, I know you are in Texas. Texas Governor Greg Abbott just deployed the National Guard there now. Is it necessary based on what you're seeing?
I seen some small crowds gathered in the Dallas downtown area, Dallas-Fort Worth area. Not much to talk about there, but I think they were attempting to do something similar, and they got shut down right away. No one is saying that you cannot assemble all you want, but there's a right way to do it, and I think that Texas is right on top of it, not allowing it to get further than that. If you're going to come into Texas to conduct this illicit activity, we're not going to allow you to do it. And so the National Guard is out there keeping an eye out as a backup to local law enforcement in case you're needed.
All right, Emilio Gonzalez, Victor Avila, thank you both so much. Really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having us.
All right, joining me now is the Los Angeles County Supervisor who accuses the Trump administration of federal overreach through those military deployments that she says have only provoked confrontation. Janice Hahn, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I want to give you a chance to respond to something that one of our previous guests just said, that the vast majority of these protesters aren't really concerned with illegal immigration.
Yeah, my head is exploding after listening to your former guest. They were creating a narrative that just isn't accurate. The majority of the people out there protesting are protesting what they see as a huge overreach by the federal government, first with these indiscriminate and I would say irresponsible raids where they are literally cornering people on the street in their cars, pulling people out of cars, leaving wives and children in the car. They're raiding car washes. I heard today they were raiding farms in Ventura and chasing farm workers across the fields. We've seen them with their guns drawn, chasing day laborers across Home Depots. This is not a way to enforce immigration policies. The comment that we just need to open up our jails and all this would stop make me crazy. We absolutely, if the federal government in Los Angeles County presents us with a federal warrant, our sheriff will absolutely open the jail up and turn over the convicted criminals that are in our custody.
What about those who are just accused of crimes?
If the federal government has a warrant for someone in our jail, our sheriff, Sheriff Luna, will turn them over. That has been the agreement. But coming into our communities, into our immigrant communities, and really, sowing fear and anxiety and confusion is so disheartening. And by the way, our own DA, Nathan Hochman, said out of about 4,000 protesters that have been protesting these last few days, they've only arrested about a dozen. So 99.99% of the residents of Los Angeles County have not been engaged in violence. So
I don't know I don't know where a dozen or what charges you're. I know there were 200 arrests just last night for failure to disperse.
Well, and I will tell you about the 200 last night. 203 were arrested for failing to disperse, not for violence. So that was after the curfew was instigated. So they were arrested because they failed to disperse, not because they were violent. So
who are these bad actors? Do you have any idea? Because it hijacks what might be legitimate civil protest, peaceful protest, and gives people the excuse to say they're just agitators looking to loot a store or throw a Molotov cocktail at a police officer.
Absolutely. And you know what, Elizabeth, we see these agitators every time there's an incident. We saw them in 2020 after George Floyd was murdered. We see them, frankly, after every Laker championship or Dodger championship. They're the ones lighting the trash cans on fire and pushing vehicles over. But the majority of people are here who are protesting these indiscriminate raids on families, on working people, on the good people in our community, in our churches, in our schools, in our neighborhoods. That's what they're protesting. Look, you know, when Trump came into office and appointed my fellow colleague in Congress, Kristi Noem, to be his Secretary of Homeland Security, he pretty much told the American people, we're going to go after these violent criminals. We're going to go after the gang members. And now they have really widened that dragnet and are assuming that everyone who is in this country who does not have documents is a criminal. And by the way, you know, I served in Congress for 5.5 years. You know how many times we tried to get a good immigration policy put forward? It's broken.
But
Janice, there's no way to even find a pathway to citizenship. So that's the first thing that Congress should do is fix our broken immigration system.
You'll get no argument. You'll get no argument. Right. Yeah. We have talked many times about Congress's failure to pass any immigration reform for decades.
That's why I left and came back to LA County.
Yeah, I do want to bring it back to LA County. Last night, you had a curfew. It seemed to work. The question is, why didn't Mayor Bass impose that curfew earlier? Why did she wait 4 nights to impose it?
Well, you know, I mean, I think it's, you know, anytime that you impose a curfew, you know, you have to confer with your law enforcement and with leaders in the city to make sure everybody's on the same page. Because as soon as you institute a curfew, of course, you have to make sure that your law enforcement is then willing to enforce it. So there's some prep that has to be done before you institute a curfew. We had curfews during COVID. We've had other curfews. And it's a measured approach that the mayor can take. But I think
but it clearly worked. It clearly worked. And after, you know, 4 pretty bad nights, you know, a lot of questions as to why she didn't do that sooner. I do want to ask you about one other.
Again, you know, let me just stop you. You know, there is 1 square mile of Los Angeles where this is taking place. Okay, in LA County, there's 4,000 square miles. There's 500 square miles in LA. We're talking about 1 square mile where these protesters and some agitators have decided to congregate. And that's what she is targeting.
I want to ask you about something that a lot of people online and around the country have noticed in these protests. Some have taken offense at the fact that the Mexican flag has been waved around. In one case, an American flag was burned. Why is this happening? Why are so many of these protesters waving the Mexican flag? And can you understand the reaction from some pockets in the country that are saying, hey, if that's how you feel, go back to Mexico?
I hear that. It certainly doesn't bother me. We are a county of immigrants. Many of children have parents who are from Mexico or other countries. We have, you know, hundreds of languages that are spoken here in LA County. We kind of welcome everybody and treat everybody. Our consul generals from all these countries meet regularly with us to talk about those that are in the county and how they can help them. It doesn't really bother me. I think worried that people think that somehow that affects their cause, because the cause is really just to say to the federal government that this is not acceptable. And we hope that they quit doing this. Yeah. And we also want to say that it was a huge overreach for the Trump administration to federalize our own California National Guard, to really come down here. Our governor didn't ask for them. Our mayor didn't ask for them. And now to think that there is active duty Marines that are being deployed to Los Angeles, by the way, at the cost of about $134 million to taxpayers in this country. So we just feel like this is, kind of theater for the Trump administration, and we don't like to be used that way. And I'm going to tell you, The immigrant families in my particular district in LA County have had a really, really hard time with this.
Yeah.
They are suffering. They are weary.
Okay.
And they're anxious. Many of them didn't go to church on Sunday.
Yeah, I hear you.
We're hearing that they didn't go to their high school graduation. So this is an overreach by our federal government, and I would kindly ask them to leave.
Janice
and
Hahn.
Let us take a breath.
Okay, Janice, thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
And we will be keeping an eye. You have joined the California governor in this lawsuit that will be heard tomorrow in federal court on an injunction to stop the Trump administration from deploying the military. So we will be covering it. I hope you'll come back and let us know how you feel about the judge's decision, whichever way it goes. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, coming up for us, we have an update to that ICE raid in Omaha that NewsNation was there for exclusively yesterday. Plus, Border Patrol is now on the ground in Los Angeles, and our own Allie Bradley is speaking to agents who say it is not an easy task to arrest undocumented migrants with criminal records. We've got an inside look on just how they're doing it. Then we're going to switch gears because, oh boy, there was big, high drama in two major high-profile cases today. It has nothing to do with the defendants, however. Why the juries in the Harvey Weinstein and Sean Combs trials are making headlines of their own.
Thing that you don't like. Everything.
America's favorite sparring duo with TV's liveliest, most honest debate.
You were right in your analysis.
Tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on NewsNation.
All right, these ICE raids aren't just going down in Los Angeles. They're going down across the country. A group of illegal immigrants detained in Omaha, Nebraska yesterday is already on its way out of the country. NewsNation was there when the plane took off. That plane is heading to Texas before then flying to Mexico, where the Mexican nationals will be dropped off. Allie Bradley was on the scene yesterday when ICE showed up at Glen Valley Foods in Omaha. They had orders to remove about 100 illegal immigrants working there. Her video shows workers trying to hide in the rafters, behind walls, and in large capacity freezers. Well, Allie has now moved on to Los Angeles, which is where we find her live for us tonight. Allie, it's not just ICE on the streets of LA. Border Patrol is also there, and you're with one agent who's been hunting down a pretty dangerous illegal immigrant. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Elizabeth, you're exactly right. So where we are right now, we're in Paramount, essentially what was ground zero 6 days ago for these protests, what we're seeing unfold here in LA. And it's these large-scale worksite enforcement operations that have really caught the attention of the nation. But there are agents out there that are spending their days going after these criminal illegal immigrants. And we were out there today with Border Patrol as they were looking for this specific target. This target that they're going after, he actually is twice convicted of lewd acts against a child under the age of 14. Now, this man also has been convicted of grand theft auto. He also has a prior order of removal. This is a guy who Border Patrol considers to be what DHS calls the worst of the worst.
Anytime you hurt a child, especially a sexual assault like that, I can't think of anything worse than that. The rubber meets the road when we hit the ground like this and we're boots on the ground. We got eyes on the places that we're looking for them, and it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, they're going to continue to look for that guy. They're very optimistic. They say they know exactly where he is. But this all comes as Border Patrol actually had to move their headquarters from the downtown area because where they were was essentially an underground area that had one way in and one way out, and it was not safe for them. They were basically being barricaded in there. So now they moved to another location that's safer that I'm not going to disclose to maintain their safety. But an agent was actually assaulted. A CBP officer was punched, and a man responsible for that was actually just arrested. DHS sharing this footage here of that apprehension of that individual who will now face those felony charges for assault on a federal officer. Now, I mentioned that they're optimistic about this individual that they're looking for, Elizabeth. They still don't have him in custody, but this just underscores the challenges that they really face here because it isn't easy. It isn't this walk in and grab this guy. They spend hours of recon finding them. They know exactly who they are, and they're going to sit on this guy and wait until they can actually arrest him, Elizabeth.
That's just one person, too. One person who is accused of some pretty serious crimes. Allie Bradley reporting from Los Angeles for us tonight. Thank you so much. Coming up, a Chinese billionaire secretly paid $17 million for American land in New Hampshire and neighbors are suspicious. Just what is he planning to do with it? Brian Entin investigates for us when we come back. All right, was it all a dream? Could it be that the global trade war that threatened to crash the market and throttle international supply chains and spike inflation might be over? Well, much remains uncertain, but after months of testy talk and escalating tit-for-tat tariffs, tonight President Trump is proclaiming a trade deal is done with China, or at least the framework of a deal. The progress follows 2 days of intense, high-level talks in London between American and Chinese negotiators. No details have been released, but the two sides basically agreed to solidify the deal they agreed on in Geneva just last month. So tariffs will remain at 55% for Chinese imports coming into the U.S., according to these barest of details. 10% tariffs on American goods going to China. China will send the U.S. rare earth minerals and magnets that U.S. manufacturers desperately need. And visas. This is interesting that the Chinese wanted this. Visas for Chinese students who want to study in the U.S. will no longer be blocked. President Trump, remember, previously opposed that. Now, President Trump posted on Truth Social in all caps that it's still subject to final approval with President Xi and me, but added the two nations' relationship is excellent. Wall Street, however, did not seem to share the president's enthusiasm over word of an agreement to agree. The market rally that was underway then stalled. The S&P 500 slipped for its first drop in 4 days. The NASDAQ was down as well, while the Dow ended little change. The markets, we should note, however, have been very, very strong recently. But while Wall Street shrugged off the China deal, at least today, concerns are growing on Main Street, USA, about the increasing number of stealth, secretive land deals being made in this country by Chinese companies. They might not want our products, but they sure seem to want our real estate. Our own Brian Entin joins us now from Nashua, New Hampshire, with new developments on this story, which you've been following for years now, Brian. What are you learning?
Yeah, Elizabeth, we've traveled the country. You know, we've done so many stories for you about the Chinese investors coming in and buying farmland from coast to coast. But this is different in New Hampshire. This has to do with water, like the reservoir that you see behind me. There's this company called Nung Fu, and it's the biggest beverage company in China. And they have bought a massive industrial site here in Nashua, New Hampshire, where apparently they plan to buy water and do some kind of water production there. It's very concerning to the people here. One of their biggest concerns is the assessed value for the property was $15 million, and Nung Fu paid $67 million cash for the property. Even the mayor told me it doesn't make sense why they would pay so much. We've seen that happen in other parts of the country, too. I spoke with several locals, a state senator concerned about national security. There's defense contractors in the area, an airport very close. Listen to what they told me.
Basically about 3 miles at the most, next to Lockheed Martin, where we make a lot of our technologies based there. And you have the airport here, you have our water supply.
Were there any public meetings, or was there any sort of outreach? Did anyone know what was happening?
No, not at all. This seems to be kind of like the color of this building. This is done very stealthy.
I can't believe it. To be honest with you, we didn't know anything about this till yesterday.
The locals say that it's suspicious, and since we've been here, Elizabeth, we learned that there's this college, Webster College, a 50-acre college that a Chinese investor also bought, paid double market value, according to the mayor. It sat abandoned. We're digging into all of this for Leland's show coming up tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern. Elizabeth?
Those are astounding sums of money that this Chinese company is spending for these properties. Amazing. All right, Brian Entin, keep on it. Let us know what you find. Coming up for us, juror drama in two major high-profile cases. Harvey Weinstein's jury is told to cool down, take a break after things nearly reached physical violence, according to one juror, while the Sean Combs jury might be down by a single juror. We'll tell you all about it next. And remember, download our NewsNation app for the very latest on our top stories of the night. All right, right, what do Sean Diddy Combs and Harvey Weinstein have in common? Well, aside from all their money, fame, falls from grace, scandalous sexual behavior, and simultaneous criminal trials, they both experienced high drama in their respective courtrooms today, and it was all about the jurors. In the Weinstein trial, the former Hollywood mogul was found guilty on one charge, the top criminal charge, criminal act and criminal sexual assault in the first degree. Now, to reach that consensus, jurors were at each other's throats, apparently. The judge had to instruct them to cool down and take a break, the foreperson saying he didn't want to go back into deliberations for the remaining charges, with the other jurors citing pressure that he was receiving to change his verdict and fears for his own personal physical safety. One of the other jurors was yelling and screaming and saying at him, "I'll meet you outside one day," according to this juror. The exchange prompted Harvey Weinstein to get up and tell the judge that he needed a mistrial. That request was denied. Over in the Sean Combs trial, prosecutors are trying to remove juror number 6. They say it's for a, quote, lack of candor with the court, while Combs' defense team says it's an attempt to remove a black man from the jury pool. All right, joining us now to look at both of these cases, attorney and jury consultant Claudia Colon and civil rights attorney Ariva Martin. Great to have both of you ladies with us tonight. Claudia, I want to start with you. Have you ever heard, let's stick with the Harvey Weinstein case first. They had 3 criminal counts to debate. They have convicted on 1 today, acquitted on 1 today. They're still deliberating on the 3rd. Deliberations have gotten so intense that a juror has come now at least a total of 3 different times to the judge to say, it's so bad, people are yelling and screaming, I've been threatened with physical violence. Have you ever heard of this?
This is very unusual. It is true that, in a high-stakes trial like this one, in a high-profile case, dealing with such intense narratives that they're seeing in the courtroom, that yes, you can expect jurors to get into heated, debates in the courtroom. In the deliberation room. They all have different backgrounds, so that is expected that there'll be some discussion. But to rise to this level, where there's, as you said, threats of violence, that is rarely seen. It's highly, highly unusual, and it's even more unusual to have it result in having the jurors render their verdicts on 2 of the counts and then placing the other one on hold to see if they can figure out the 3rd one.
Yeah, the judge basically gave them all a timeout and sent them home early today. They're supposed to reconvene tomorrow. Ariva, the judge at one point actually asked the foreman if anybody had physically touched him. The foreman of the jury said it was all verbal harassment, but he did say, quote, today they went too far, and said that, as I said, one of the jurors threatened physical violence.
Yeah, one of the things that's so unusual about this situation, Elizabeth, is also this juror said that other jurors were bringing in information that was not presented during this trial. So there's seemingly just a comedy of errors that probably will give Harvey Weinstein's team an opportunity to appeal, at least on the charge where he has been convicted of sexual assault. Very, very unusual to have a juror tell a judge that he doesn't even want to go back and continue deliberating because of the hostility that he is experiencing from the other jurors.
Yeah, this is giving 12 Angry Men a whole new meaning, although it's not just men, we know, in this jury. Ariva, you mentioned a possible appeal. Weinstein himself actually stood up and addressed the judge to say he wanted a mistrial, saying, I deserve to have a jury that's not fighting with each other. The judge denied a mistrial, but his attorney, Arthur Idalia, has twice asked for a mistrial as well. Is this all grounds for an appeal?
Well, it sure looks like it, Elizabeth, to have the defendant make his own plea, in addition to what his lawyers have been doing. This is not how the jury system should work. No juror should feel coerced. No juror should feel pressure. No juror should feel isolated. And when a juror tells a judge that there is basically misconduct happening in deliberations, the judge needs to take that very seriously. I cannot imagine that we won't see an appeal.
I cannot either. All right. Meantime, we're going to switch over to Sean Combs' trial, where Claudia, prosecutors are trying to remove juror number 6 for a, quote, lack of candor in the selection process. We know from our previous notes when this jury was seated that this is a 41-year-old man. He works in the corrections department. He's African-American and likes hip-hop music. What is it, do you think, this far into the trial that the prosecution might have found that would at least give the judge is seriously considering this.
That's right. The judge is seriously considering it. All we know so far is that the prosecution is saying something came up that suggests that maybe he wasn't fully truthful with the court during the jury selection process when they were asked, can you be impartial? How much have you been exposed to the facts of this case?
They're worried about him being a stealth juror.
They are worried about him potentially being a stealth juror is what we think. Likely because they probably found something out there in the public, maybe social media, maybe something else. Somebody else posted something about the juror that maybe reveals that.
Or maybe somebody called up and said he said something.
That could also be it.
But
Yeah,
they're concerned he's not actually unbiased and that he's very biased toward Sean Combs, which is why the defense is fighting so hard to keep this juror on.
That could be it. We will see how it unravels. They have until Friday. The judge said he's going to consider. Both sides get to submit written submissions to him, laying out their positions of why they should or should not dismiss this juror. The judge said he would resolve it before the weekend, so we'll see how it develops. But it is sort of a strange situation to be facing this far in the trial, and it does seem like something is up.
Yeah.
Something was discovered.
All right, Claudia Colonna, Reva Martin, thank you both so much. We will hear more on both of these. All the drama in both of these trials, I'm sure, in the next coming days. All right, coming up for us, Chris Cuomo joins me live next with a preview of his show and his special guest tonight, Bill O'Reilly. All right, that does it for us on this busy night, but Chris Cuomo is all set to take over. You've got Bill O'Reilly on tonight. Lots to discuss.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.